Hey, I'm Johnetta. I'm 22, and I'm a Liberian girl with a sprinkle dinkle of Ghanaian. Some would say I have 10% of Nigerian in me, but
The corner, conversations in the corner. Heart to heart with the people having conversation. The corner, conversation in the corner.
Hi, I sat with Johnetta Sarkorh, where she talked about how she dealt with people-pleasing with her family, her friendships, and her personal life. Find out more in the corner, heart-to-heart conversations.
yes, I would say I am afraid of how I can be perceived to people. I think my intentions and truly what stems from my heart is to be good. And in having a conversation, with people, the definition of what is good and what is defined as good by society changes based person to person. I'm actually in a philosophy class right now, and one of the first things that we talked about was like what makes something good. If something's good, if good in itself or good for its consequences, and like how that is determined. And my whole thought process through the entire class was how subjective everything is and was, because it's truly based off of one philosopher's way of thinking, way of thought, and their perception of what they deem as good. And it can get very like turned around when God's not in the midst of it all, specifically when God's not in the midst of it all, and like I said, when it goes person to person. And I think truly deep down, my ultimate goal in life is to never like make anyone feel as if I didn't treat them with the best version of myself, and that being like good, not being kind to everyone, not being nice, I used to say, to everyone. And I think when I have to make tough decisions, when I am placed in certain situations where I have to be selfish, or something is just not going to be perceived from that person's point of view as being good, it scares me, and it doesn't allow me to make decisions for me. It doesn't allow me to move in a way that is supposed to be for Johnetta, not for anyone else. And I struggle with that. I struggle with how will this outcome make this person think of me differently? Should I dim my light for someone else in order to help them shine brighter because I feel like maybe my light is a little bit too bright? How can I refrain from like doing something just to make someone else feel more comfortable? And I find myself doing that a lot, oftentimes. And then ultimately I find myself in a place of where I'm like, okay, I ultimately feel like I may have withheld certain things from myself because I am ultimately sacrificing a piece of myself just based solely on the fact of like, how will this be perceived at the end of the day? And it shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't be making decisions like that. I shouldn't live my life like that, because keyword emphasis on my life, my decisions, my journey. Like a friend said to me earlier today, like, I didn't come into this world with anyone. And even if you are a twin, twins don't come out of the uterus. They don't come out, they don't come out, at the same time, it's always who came out first, who came out second. You don't ever come out with anyone. And God is so meticulous in the way that he does that, because you don't have to feel tethered to anyone. You don't have to feel tied down to make decisions in order to aid someone else when you're hindering your own blessing. And that's how I've been feeling a lot of times in my life, because I do know deep down inside, like, there is this light in me. And although I was fortunate enough to be raised in a household where my mom birthed like goodness through reading the Bible, through God, through learning about God, and that's how I learned how to build a good heart and build a heart that resembles God. A lot of people aren't fortunate to have the same upbringing, and because of that, people who are fortunate enough oftentimes find themselves being taken advantage of, because people are just so evil in this world that they will step on anything to get whatever it is that they want, to get ahead, to feel accomplished, to feel successful. And, you know, I think to myself sometimes, there are a lot of things I'm like, I would never do that to anybody. I would never think that way. And I can't say the same for a lot of people around me. And so that's what allows people to like take advantage of a good heart. But people like that are always going to be there. I think it's more so doing that work for yourself and knowing when you need to take a step back from a situation and resettle and think about, okay, what am I sacrificing right now? How do you feel in the moment? Do you feel peace? Are you stressed? Do you feel like this decision is sound? Do you feel like whatever your decision that you're making, regardless if it's going to hurt someone, if you're sound and you feel peace from it? And that's just more so what I've been trying to come to terms with when I make decisions, because I can go back and forth just based off of someone else's feelings instead of just settling in on mine and what God's telling me to do. So I'm definitely gonna have to throw my mom under the bus. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's just more so a generational thing, maybe, or maybe an immigrant thing, or yeah. I would say, like, growing up, I think I watched my mom, especially in the community I was brought up in, I watched her take a lot of things when it came to her stretching herself thin. It can be minute things, as like doing things for the church or certain functions, and just growing up in the presence of someone who didn't really understand the power of no, and their power in general. I had no other, what's the word I'm looking for? I had no other like representation or role models in order to like show me you can say no. You don't always have to say yes, in order to like solidify or like back up this idea of everyone has to like you. You don't want any bad blood. I think it just stems from a fear of like, you don't want enemies, or you don't want to give people a reason to make you an enemy to them. You don't want to essentially piss anyone off. So you become their yes man. Oh yeah, I can do that for you. Even though inside you're like, I really don't want to do that. You're fighting yourself. Oh yes, I can do it. I watch my mom a lot. Like, she would be at work knowing she didn't want to do certain tasks, knowing that someone was taking advantage of her, would always fall back into trying to use the word to justify it in a sense. And I'm just like, the more that I build my spiritual relationship with God, like, sweetie, I don't think God wants you to be bending over backwards, and like I talked about, in order to sacrifice something that you don't want to do, because you never know, like, you saying yes to a lot of things can open doors to a lot of things that you had no business being at that house to be opening that front door to get inside that house. You have no business being in certain areas. And I think a lot of the times we try to justify that. We try to justify, and I don't know why. I don't know why people pleasing is a thing. I don't know why we're so afraid of people. And I think that's where that stems from, being afraid of people. That came from my mom, and I think that just stems back to like her coming to this country and just trying to make a way for herself, and like being a subordinate, and having people over her, and just trying not to make the wrong move. And I don't blame her for that. I definitely understand. But that would be one of the areas. And I think from that seed, it just kind of grew from there. And I watched myself cultivate that in different areas of my life. But yeah. It literally means that you cut out a piece of yourself, cut off your arm, and you give it to someone. Let me rephrase that. Literally, someone is like, yes, okay, let's say I need help moving. They need help carrying their groceries inside. And like, that statement where people are like, I only have 2 arms, I only have 2 hands. Is literally you going and giving your hands to them in order to help them accomplish something, them feel a certain emotion, them get somewhere and be in a position. And then you're sitting here with no hands, and there's blood streaming from your arms, and you're sitting here helpless, but you're like, oh, at least I was able to help them. And then you look down, you need to look down at yourself, like, what did you lose so that they could carry their groceries inside? And that's what people pleasing feels like. It feels literally in the moment like, okay, yeah, I was able to help them. But then at the end of the day, you feel this pit, this emptiness inside, that you don't have. It's almost like you're losing pieces of yourself over and over and over and over, and then you'll realize like there's nothing left to lose. So it started with the hands, then you gave a foot, then you gave another foot. Oh, the leg is gone. Oh, another leg. Do you need the patella? I'm just kidding. But like, yeah, you start to lose pieces of yourself. And I think it can also navigate into you not even understanding who you are, because you don't even know what to say no to. You don't even know. You just say yes to everything. You become a yes man. At this point, it's just like, okay, so then were you created to be working for this person? So and so, like, or were you created in order to fulfill a purpose of your own? And a lot of the times, like I said, when we don't realize when to say no to certain things, that can just play into different areas of your life. You start making the wrong decisions. You start going down the wrong street. You start hanging with people you don't need to be hanging with. They start to introduce you into things you don't need to be doing. And it's always good to be aware of self. And when you're not aware of self, it's detrimental, and it can cause you to lose your soul. That's how I feel. Like, you just don't have any sense of yourself, and you realize you're living life in limbo. And what that means is it's almost like you're stuck in a dreamlike state of where you're sleeping, but you're not. But you want to be awake, but you can't be awake. And so you're always going to be moving through life mindlessly, just being someone's yes man, waiting for the next person to ask you something and for you to jump up and say yes, like some dog. I don't want to be anyone's dog. I hate to like make it so big. And I think, like I was saying to someone earlier today, like sometimes you have to like allow your mind to think of the most extreme things in the most extreme possible ways in order to get you to realize like there is an issue there. And so by me saying like I don't want to be someone's dog when they blow the whistle, like I do not want to always run, you know. So yeah, that's what people pleasing is like. I think it can be both. I'm gonna take the easy way out here, and it can only be both once you learn self, though, because it's all about understanding where your yeses stop and where your nos begin. It can be healthy in terms of you thinking like you're gonna be there for your neighbor. I think just following that, love thy neighbor, be there for thy neighbor, help thy neighbor. Just thinking of how Jesus was on earth, and even Jesus though, let's take a pause. Although he was sent here on earth, and although he was created in goodness and the likeness, and he spread goodness, truth, just a lot of things, a lot of characteristics, a lot of adjectives I can't even describe right now. He knew when to say no. And I think once we start putting ourselves to, like we're supposed to, because we're made in the image of God, in the shoes of Jesus, and can say like, oh, Jesus was like, yeah, we're not doing that. You need to be like, oh, I'm not doing that. Because it's knowing in yourself, like thinking back to the first question in my class, is it good in itself or is it good for its consequences? And your consequence just being that you don't want this person thinking a certain thing about you, or you don't want to be perceived in a certain way, that's not good enough reason for you to sacrifice anything that you don't want to do in order to aid someone. So something has to definitely be good in itself, and the reasons why you're doing it. And to say, is it healthy or is it not healthy, stems from you got to know yourself. And that's the only way I can answer it. Like you have to understand yourself. Maybe it's by trial and error. Maybe it's by saying yes to something one day, and to that same thing saying no, and seeing how you feel, or just evaluating, always checking in with yourself. I think it can definitely be both healthy and non-healthy, but I think I can only fall back into saying check in with oneself, know oneself, get to learn oneself, paying attention to your gut feeling, because you were born innately and you know when something does not feel right to you. You know when you don't want to do something. So always just check in with yourself. And yeah, if you don't, it's unhealthy. If you do, then you're people pleasing in a healthy manner. But I don't know, the whole term people pleasing is extreme. And so from that in itself, it just sounds unhealthy. And never want to be a people pleaser. You want to please people on your own doing. Yeah, there's a difference. You don't want to be a yes man. You want to be a man who says yes. Yeah, so. Yeah, I definitely am. And it's shown truly, like, when I am thrown into uncomfortable situations, especially with people that I'm close with, friends, family, and it's in a good, okay. On one hand, it's a good thing. I haven't explained it yet. On another hand, it's a bad thing. I tend to like to get squash situations easily, because having arguments, being in uncomfortable situations makes me uncomfortable, like the word says, uncomfortable situations. And that's just me. I just like to like have things squared, have things situated, because I don't want to be carrying this thing of like, this person feels tense about me, this person doesn't like me, all of these things that I would like to live life happy-go-lucky, not have any kind of animosity towards anyone. And yeah, I would say like by doing that, I just kind of can sometimes dodge situations, even if like certain things make me feel a certain way too, for the fear of not having confrontation, or like this thing, I will try to dead things quickly, handle things quickly, and not explore and get deep how I'm supposed to. And I don't know. I mean, I do know why I do it. Like I said, I just don't like dealing with those feelings. But yeah, it's something like that I've realized or recognized within myself, especially like this year. And especially when like situations kept happening back to back to back. Sometimes we don't realize like those uncomfortable situations and having those confrontations with certain people allow you to see something within yourself, allow you to learn a lesson that you wouldn't have learned had you not been uncomfortable, allows you to push yourself to different limits, and allows you to be unfamiliar when it comes to your emotions, and probably even the season that you're in, it pushes you into that. And sometimes we just need to sit and know like, this person hates my guts, or sit and realize this person probably doesn't like me, and sit with ourselves to know like, that's okay. They're not the only person in the entire world. They are not the only person you're going to encounter. They're probably not meant to even be in your life, and let them hate you from a distance. People think like, oh, I don't want to gain haters. I don't want to have any bad blood. I don't want to have any animosity. But there's another thing, like, these people do not have to be in your day-to-day life. They can hate you from a distance, and that's okay. That's why the word haters exists. Let them hate from a distance. In some way, I can say like, maybe I've noticed it. I think sometimes kind of live life a little, what's it called, like rose color tinted. Those aren't the colors. I would say I kind of live life like hyper fixated on what I do for other people, and not sometimes what other people do for me. I wish I could actually start this question over, because I don't really know how to like. In this case, oh gosh, I have to think about this one. This is one I have to actually think about. Can you read the question one more time?
Have you ever been able to recognize or identify when someone is trying to bring back you?
Wow. Like in an unhealthy way? I mean, I definitely have recognized, if we're going to tie people pleasing to someone doing a lot to receive my love, and if we're going to dissect this a bit more, I would have to, from a psychological standpoint, like people pleasing and love, the way your love goes hand in hand. Maybe like going back to question 2, I think it was like, where does my people pleasing, like, where did it stem from? I think it also stems from like the way you're loved. And if you feel like maybe you've been neglected in some way, maybe it's just hard for you to receive love, hard for you to give it. So what you think someone needs when it's hard for you to give love is that you think that just by pleasing them in any way, that shows that you love them. When it comes to like people trying to give you love, I know I'm taking this to the side, but then you find yourself fighting them. And when asked, have I ever recognized if someone has bent over backwards in order to like try to please me, I would have to say like maybe I recognized that someone was trying to love me hard and I was just in denial of that. I'm not sure why. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe deep down I just know like I don't know how to answer this, girl. Hold on. Long story short, let me not continue my thought. Yeah, I think I have recognized when someone has tried to like bend over backwards to show me that they loved me. And it scares me. I fight it a lot. And sometimes it's hard to recognize it too when you're always the one doing it for someone else. I really don't. This question has me stumped a little. Maybe it's just like a slap in the face. Maybe I feel like I've been the only one in my relationships with people who has been the people pleaser. And so like the people I'm surrounded by have always taken from me and have never tried for me to take from them, in a sense, you know? Yeah, so I will say like maybe there have been times where someone has tried to bend backwards for me, but I couldn't really recognize that because I was stuck in my mindset of always giving to them, that it was hard for me to take. So no, I can't really give like a specific moment, but I know someone has always, or someone has in my past tried to show me in some way, tell me. And it may have not been through like people pleasing necessarily, but yeah. When I started to feel less like myself and had trouble figuring out who Johnetta is, and would find myself drained. And then I would think about the interactions of people in my life and how they were making me feel, and recognizing patterns in between like situations and people and my emotions, just kind of like navigating through all of that, and would just sit back and play certain scenarios, play certain interactions back and realize, maybe I should have spoken up more. Maybe the way this person apologized to me wasn't necessarily how I would have liked an apology, but in order to remedy the situation, I'm just going to let that go. And that in a sense too, like people pleasing is so wide. That in a sense of like, even if we get what we want from someone, but it's not how we want it, we deny that, as big as it is or as small as it is, that from ourselves. That in a sense is people pleasing. Yes, even if you get an apology from someone, if the apology is not how you would like the apology to be, because some people can apologize without recognizing that they did anything wrong to you. And so how are they supposed to learn their lesson when you allow them to remedy the situation with that weak apology, and then you brush it off as if everything is okay, but then it shows up again in the relationship and you realize, hey, I've never talked about this, but in order to remedy the situation and not have it be such a big deal, in order to keep things cordial, keep things cool, in order to not have this big moment in the friendship, I'm going to not speak on it how I truly feel about it. And because they went outside themselves and they still gave me an apology, I'm not gonna really say like, hey, even though you said these words to me, I still feel a certain way, or hey, I still feel like you didn't recognize this. And that's how I was feeling in certain situations. And I really wouldn't say I stumbled across this until I entered college, you know? Like, I feel like I became more of a people pleaser once I entered college. Prior to being in college, I feel like I kind of ran the show, you know, captain of my own ship. And no, but I think I just had a sense of who, you know, Johnetta is, can be. And then getting here and thrown in with so many other people, I think I lost sight of, instead of making decisions that would make me hate it nonetheless, I would tend to fall back on being comfortable and not wanting to have like these big things. I don't know what to call them. These big like blow ups, or just wanted to find myself or find my way while I was here. And I would say a lot of things I just kind of let happen to me and not speak up on it. I would say I recognize a little bit more like when I'm people pleasing. It's still hard to completely neglect some of those tendencies, because it's already been instilled within me that like pleasing people makes you a good person. The part of it makes you a good person, and like by doing that, by sacrificing, like it is what you're supposed to, you know what I'm saying? Like it is what you're supposed to do, but it's not. And I think the more I unlearn a lot of things that the belief system that I was raised on, and, you know, just family members and old friends even, just people who have had like access to you at a time where you were naive, and them still being present, and just all of that can cause like a roadblock to you entering into this new version of yourself that you're supposed to be. And so sometimes I find myself like becoming double-minded when it comes to like certain situations of people pleasing. Like I know within myself like I shouldn't be doing this to cater to someone. However, I just have this fear of like not wanting to make them feel hurt. I think my people pleasing more so stems from not wanting to hurt anyone, or to be a trauma on someone else's life, just because I understand how it is to feel trauma, and I understand how it is to like be hurt. And so I'm trying to, in a sense, protect people, but I am not their protector. And I'm still trying to understand that in each and every relationship that I cultivate, that I can't always be there to coddle someone, or I can't be the person to protect them from feeling hurt, whether it's a breakup, whether it's having a tough conversation, whether it's telling them no after months, years of telling them yes. People need to hear some tough things, and people need to be forged into the fire, because that is what's going to shape them. People need to be pruned in a certain manner, and sometimes pruning is you cutting down at those yeses, and sometimes that's a tough thing to do. Lack of self-awareness, neglect of emotion, failure to recognize when to say no. But I feel like those are all encompassed into one thing. I think there's not like three things. I really think there's just one thing. And within that one thing, you can break it down to have many different subsections, more than three for sure. And I think it just solely is wrapped up in identity of self, and self, in that place, self-awareness. So if you don't know yourself, and when we pertain to self as well, we need to pertain to God, because we are made in the image of God. So if you don't know God, let's start there. If you don't recognize what fills you up and what makes you whole, you can't recognize what makes you you. All right. So you don't understand yourself. And if you can't have those two good foundations, if you really, it's just one, because if you know God, you know yourself, because God will move through you to understand when your yes is supposed to be your yes and your no is supposed to be your no, who you're supposed to be hanging out with, if this is your season to be with them, when your season is to cut them off. It's like he gives you the playbook. So once you know who God is, the other things should fall into order. It should fall into alignment. And for me, I said those three things, but it all points back to like, do you know God? Do you know yourself? And from that, you can recognize, okay, who am I? What am I going to say yes to? What am I going to say no to? All right, how does this make me feel? If you don't pay attention to how you're feeling, I think it's a lot of things that fall underneath knowing yourself. I haven't deeply thought about like I've known that like I'm a people pleaser. It's fine. People pleaser anonymous. Jonetta's on board. Sign me up. I think it's just the one question that stumped me was like, when have I recognized if someone was bending over backwards? And so one thing I can take away from this is that one thing I can say is that like I've been so caught up in a mindset of pleasing others that I can't appreciate the fruits that someone's trying to bear to me, and I can't sit and relish in that fruit and eat the fruit and enjoy the fruit completely and wholly, because I'm so focused on me being in the field, sowing, planting that seed, doing all the work for them, and not realizing that in order to give me a break, they're bringing me water, they're bringing me something to eat, because I'm so focused on tilling and getting things done in order to provide, that I neglect that when someone comes knocking. And that's even God too as well, like not realizing when people are there in order to help please me, in order to help like in order for my benefit. Yeah. And that just starts to branch out into other areas of like not being able to be open to receiving someone's love, and not paying attention when someone is loving you hard, but you continue to like just solely be focused on whatever it is that you're doing. Yeah, I would say that's something I've really been like praying on my own. It's just like how to love, how to be open to it, how to receive it, how to give it. And yeah, that question really like stumped me. I was like, ooh, like definitely I know people have done things for me and have been patient with me in order to like help me out. But when I think of like, I guess I was thinking about people pleasing in an unhealthy manner. Like, has anyone ever like gone the extra mile, and I recognize that and I'm open to receiving that extra mile that they've pushed to? I was stumbled. So it's pushed me into being a little bit more aware in my interactions with people in terms of what they do for me, and not hyperfixate on everything that I'm doing for someone else.